No Favor every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. on Sugar City 90.3 FM.
Good evening and welcome to Fear No Favor. And I have a special guest with me here tonight, no stranger to Sugar City. But he's here with us again in the person of Genevieve Mills. Genevieve, welcome to Sugar City and Fear No Favor.
You should have said welcome back. Thank you very much, Mr. Nital, for inviting us here to take part in these conversations this evening. I am here representing, of course, the Ministry of Employment and Labour, and I think the discussion should be more formed around the minimum wage committee, advisory committee, and the work that has been happening around such for the past couple of months.
And just to let the listeners know that the Honorable Sam Conda is going to join us at 9 o'clock, so we would have a real intense and transformative discussion because some persons have things pervading in their minds, and we are going to see how much we can massage out of the horse's mouth tonight so that you can feel more at ease, because we've been hearing about minimum wage now for over 10 years, and actually a committee was put in place to have that adjust. So we are very, very happy to have them here. Now, tell us about this committee. And tell us how long ago it was formed.
Well, in the absence of the chairman, I think he was informed sometime in March about the committee being put together. The committee was first tasked or convened the first meeting somewhere around about the 27th of March this year. And thereafter, we would have met twice per week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, to have dialogue. on the issue of the minimum wage and task with different aspects of bringing information to the table, so we could have that sort of wholesome dialogue.
Okay, I realize you said they met, thereafter they met. Kind of dissociative, but you mean that we met?
Well, when I said there,
are you on there?
Yeah, I was there, of course,
all the
but
time?
Yes, I was there.
Okay, so we met.
Yeah, we met.
Every Tuesday.
My apologies for putting it in that context, but we would have met every Tuesday and Thursday up until April. Until April, just about April, the ending of April, a report would have been submitted to the minister.
Okay, look at the committee. Would you say that committee was representative as a reasonable cross-section of the society?
Of course, and I would say it was wholesome. The committee had members from both St. Kitts and Nevis. I must add, it had persons representing the chamber from St. Kitts and Nevis. It had persons representing the Ministry of Labour on St. Kitts and the Department of Labour on Nevis. You had persons representing the St. Kitts Trades and Labour Union on this end. You had representative from Consumer Affairs, Ministry of Finance, Social Security, Ministry of Education. You had statistics as well. You had international trade. You had the players. You had ECCB, so you could look at the economic impact. You had Social Security, so you could have that sort of acute understanding of what is happening in St. Kitts and Nevis from a wage perspective. So if you ask me, I would say the plethora was well put together in terms of the body of persons who were represented there.
You spoke about the St. Kitts Trades and Labour Union. Is it the St. Kitts Trades and Labour Union or the St. Kitts Nevis Trades and Labour Union? I'm trying to just differentiate properly.
Well, it's the same union, so St. Kitts Nevis Trades and Labour Union.
The St. Kitts Nevis Trades and Labour Union.
Yes, sir.
Because in recent time, we have not been hearing much of the St. Kitts Nevis Trades and Labour Union. I was very happy to know that they were part of the discussion.
Yes, they were part.
Because I think they have some young, intelligent minds there and could bring some creativity to the discussion. So I would like to say congratulations to them. Now, what prompted the need for action? Somebody had the ears to the ground or been to the ground for several years, and we just feel it was timely now to come and put a committee together to have this thing addressed once and for all.
Well, if the chairperson was here, he would have gone back to when the minimum wage would have first been established, and that would have been back in 2004, based on the legislation that handles that. Between 3 and 4 years, you should have similar discussions to
Reviews.
determine whether or not
Could be
the
adjusted.
necessary impacts are there to determine if a minimum wage should be adjusted. Thereafter, you would have had a minimum wage increase in about 2009 to about 7.25, and then thereafter to 6.25, and then thereafter to from 6.25 to 7.50, and from 7.50 to know where we're at $9. And you had a minimum wage committee convened in 2018-19, and at that point in time, they had no recommendation for an increase. And so this is where we're at. The truth is we have not had a minimum wage increase for the past almost, let's say 10 years. I think
10
it's
years.
just about 9 years. And so based on what is happening in the country, and not just the country, but in the region,
globally as
and
well.
on the global stage, the leaders would have recognized that there was need for such, and so the advisory committee was convened to have such discussions.
You said that there was a committee in 2019. Are these committees like ad hoc, or let me get a little closer so we could really nip the thing, the understanding. The committee that you served on, is it correct to say that you served on, or you are serving on, because it is continuous?
I am now serving on a committee.
Right.
It
So
is
it was not any
continuous,
ad
but
hoc.
the committee before would have been continuous until this, until at the committee before that was convened. They would, because you get instruments of appointments, and until another committee is reconvened, then it's like the committee is still there. Now it is whether or not there's another purpose for the committee outside of advising the government on the minimum wage. The government could task the committee with to find out other information. You understand?
So they could be differently tasked.
Yes, and they could be tasked to give feedback. Let's say, for example, with this recommendation we went forward, a minimum wage increase comes thereabout. Before a next increase could be triggered, the government could task this very committee, these members, to go and look at what is happening in the federation to determine if there's need. And then you might have members who may have to change because they are no longer in the position, so they can no longer function on the committee. And I guess in some instances that's how members would change.
What are some of the factors that would have been taken into consideration to decide the parameters of the minimum wage? What are some? It doesn't have to be all. What are some of the things that they consider? The basket of goods?
Of course, the
Yeah.
basket of goods. And that's where you had consumer affairs being at the table. You had the prevailing markets in terms of the cost of living, and the amount of spending power somebody is left with when they would have dealt with their essential services such as transportation, housing, and those kind of stuff. So all these things was considered. The cost for, let's say, school, sending an infant to a child to school, all these things were considered in a holistic way. It was not done in a vacuum. Subsidies that the government give, and how we are accessible to them as a people, you understand, were considered as well to determine, if the time is right to trigger such a move.
It might have been quite a delicate equilibrium to establish, and I believe that with great minds there would have been back and forth.
Of course.
Suggestions and counter suggestions.
Of course. And this went on, like I said, for weeks. I think we met for almost, about 5 weeks. think we would have met at least 13, between 13, 12 and 13 times, somewhere around there. And it was that sort of conversation every time.
So Mr. Kondo was the chairman?
Yes, he was
chairperson.
he was the chairperson. And he is the chairperson.
He is.
Yes.
Okay. How do you, with the back and forth, who would decide that, yes, we have reached a compromise?
Well, the chairman is the chairman controls the tone and what happens in the meeting. Of course, persons were always allowed to speak freely and give that sort of input, because we needed that sort of free input to determine, the reality of what it is we are dealing with and the recommendations that we would give to the government. And you have to consider data. Most of what we did within the committee was based on data and not just based on how we felt as individuals.
Data driven.
Yes, it was data driven. So even the recommendations, every stakeholder entity had to give their own separate paper on what they think the minimum wage should be, and it had to be data driven based on information that was provided by the Social Security, ECCB, and the statistics department, consumer affairs, and so forth, so forth. So is this information that already collated in our local system? It is what was used to revive for us to reach at the sort of figures, you understand, that were proposed by the different stakeholders.
Were there times when the chairman felt that he was being a bit too paternalistic and decided, well, let's have a vote on that instead of leaving it up to me to decide?
No.
Not I mean,
and you would have to ask him when he comes. Yes, so you would have to ask
him. But there
him.
was any time when they had votes?
If we had to vote openly or secretly for anything?
Yes.
No.
Just discussions.
Just we had open, frank discussions. Even when submissions were made, the committee would understand what the submissions were and who were making what submissions. We will sometimes discuss the various submissions. And like you said, we have that sort of banter, whether or not, it was fitting based on the information or the data that all of us would have looked at if we actually, seen the same thing. So yes, we had that sort of open dialogue all along the way.
I just could imagine the environment with great minds.
It was fluid, I must add, and it is because it was because of the sort of because of the makeup of the composition of the persons on that advisory committee why this is even happening, because the committee members determine it can't just be business as usual. We want the minimum wage increase. Everybody's asking for a minimum wage increase. Of course, you would not have consensus on where it should be, and that's why the government is left up to the hard task of determining that fact based on the information that they would have received. However, like I said, you would always have that sort of, we are here on somewhat the same mission, because we are here, all of us are here to stand vanguard of the people in a collective. However, we are here on a different footing, so to speak. I'm representing the government.
We're working towards the same central
but
purpose.
we're working towards the same central purpose. And because of that, we would have all come to the reality that with the minimum wage is concerned as well, productivity, you understand, would have to be something that is considered. And not just productivity. We would have went a little further and said that education must be hand in hand with this. And the reason for that is we want persons, when they get this minimum wage increase, they don't just, let's say, go out there and dilly-dally the $2 that they receive. We would want persons to make wise decisions, invest where you can, save where you can.
Provide a little cushion.
Yes, and get that cushion that you rightfully was always looking for when we call the rainy days.
But you see, within that context, that might have been difficult, Am I hearing that you all would have submitted your final position to the government.
Yes,
Okay.
the committee would have submitted its position.
You were given a time frame?
Well, given a time frame, how I would put it is not necessarily that it was given a time frame. However, when you're looking at a minimum wage, you would want to round up the conversation in a short enough time, but at the same time you don't want it to be rushed. Short enough because the longer you take to get some sort of consensus or some sort of balance in the room, the further away you gain away from a position.
But you see, the funny, I wanted to ask you about that because let us assume you have an insurance accident. Somebody got injured. An insurance company, you're looking for compensation. And you went, and maybe after the person would have gone for the MRI and everything else, you went and you sign off on the claim. But actually, the person wasn't stable as yet. So after you done sign off and relieve the insurance company from any further liability, you realize this is when the person starts to experience more severe pain and suffering. What I wanted to say is that because of the instability of the global market and the many changes with the Ukraine and Russian war and stoppage of this and supply and demand, it wasn't a bit difficult saying, well, we're ready for it. And now that you have done it, you think that there are some members of the committee who feel, well, boy, that little $500, we tell them it could have been $550 or $5. I'm just assuming, calling a number, because look at what has developed since that. So was there sufficient confidence that we have reasonable degree of stability within the socio-economic global activity and regional and local that we could say that, yes, this is something that we can extrapolate from and say this is what it's supposed to be? Or you want to come back in the next 2-3 months and say, but I believe we shall change the people, you know. You understand where I'm coming from,
what I
right?
will say to you, the conversations were, I smiled a little bit inside without showing it on the face, since I'm certain that the camera is on. I almost wanted to know if you were in the room, because that is exactly how some of the conversations were. They were that intense when, like, we would consider all these things that you spoke about and more. But no, I can't say.
I think everything was opposite at the time when the final position.
No, I can't say it ever had a point where, let's say, all of us would have agreed on a particular figure. What we know as a body is that a minimum age increase is necessary. What we were never
sure about as the quantum.
Yeah, no, I don't think if we had to put it to a vote, we would get, honestly, that and I'm just looking at it from
you could have gotten a range, though. A range.
No, and that's why the various stakeholders, based on the data, had to go and give their ranges or their figure based on the information provided, and support their argument with the evidence or the information based on what they were putting forward. So you have different entities. You had, for example, a figure as high as, let's say, $15 an hour. And for example, you had a figure as low as...
Can be below 9. I done 9 already and we're balling.
10.50 an hour. And of course, you had numbers that would be in between there. At the end of the day, when you present to the government, you present all this information, and the government, well, they present this information to the minister, and the minister now take this to the cabinet, and the cabinet would have to consider.
I guess I might have to do a best fit.
A
diagram, and then you draw the best fit in line, and then you find
what
the average.
what I would say to you is that the government in this case didn't just take that route of doing any best fit. what would have happened is that the Prime Minister would have, since then, the submission, since then, he would have met with the Chamber, he would have met with Finance, he would have met with various stakeholders outside of the minimum wage advisory committee, and then he would have tasked a committee, the cost of living task force, to find out what is happening in the federation, to look at it from a regional and international standpoint, and come back with the information. So we had to again go back to the drawing board and give the Prime Minister and the government
That's
more
why
information.
I asked you if you feel that you all were firm and steady and ready for what you all presented as a
Well, we were
position.
firm and ready, and steady. At the end of the day, the government, I guess, they needed more. They needed more.
Input.
I am of the view that whatever the increase would be, they would want to be able to support it with enough information, informed information based on that was data driven. And in this case, for me, based on being a part of the rooms and understanding what they was doing, I think that is what they were trying to achieve here.
Even at that juncture, they would still have deviation.
Of course.
Every single unit that was represented would have experienced some degree of deviation since then. And it's not easy. So I'm trying to tell people, whatever is the eventuality, we just have to embrace it for the time being. You understand? And like you said, the committee is there, and we still would we want to see something that this is the minimum wage, and it is suggested that we review this every 2 years. Let's suppose it used to be every 4 years, every 5 years. I don't even believe that was done in the past, but let us assume it used to be 4. But because there's so many moving parts right now, it might have to take place every 2 years, 2.5 years, instead of the 4 that was there before. We never had much moving part. We had any this and that and everything else. So because of the many...
We had a little bit of stability.
Right, it was more stable. So now there might be the need to revisit every 2.5 years or something like that. I think that's the flexibility. One thing I find strange, Jenny, is that, well, I think we're not really so great on statistics. I would have done some projects and needed information, statistical information. And it was like beating a dead horse, boy. Difficult to get the statistics that you needed. You know, so I was happy when you had the statistics department, but each subunit might have had their own statistics department.
Yes, you
right?
had situations like where some entities would have had the information already. They had information already, you understand, that they was able to use based on what we were trying to achieve.
And some had to go dig and dig and dig and dig.
Of course, you had situations like that. Like you rightfully said, I think we are now starting to understand the importance of data and the fact that most of what we do as a federation, in terms of, especially if you're going to improve, if you want to improve, it's data driven. And this data going to be supported by feedback from persons who are, let's say, impacted by whatever it is we are trying to offer. So data, of course, can play a critical role as we move forward.
From those who are more adversely impacted, those that are positively impacted, then they're nice and dandy, they could get a glass of wine. But those on the other end of the spectrum who might not have been so sweetly impacted, you might still have to listen to them a bit.
Of course, and that's why I say if you do it in such a way, you understand, where data is always utilized and you gain feedback from the persons who are rightfully impacted, then we're gonna be properly informed and we can make those sort of best decisions. And not only best decisions from let's say a reactive standpoint, but we could put systems in place from a proactive approach, because we are speaking to the people who are impacted directly. Be it the minimum wage, be it the cost of living, be it social programs where these things are concerned.
And I assume that maybe a year into the increase in minimum wage, a survey would have to be conducted to get feedback from people, because that would be part of your guiding light Because you might, I heard you all saying a few things, but we're going to take it nice and slow. But if there's anything else that you want, you talk about education. But I want to come back to the Chamber of Industry and Commerce because that chamber seemed to represent certain people. And I'm saying certain people. And I could imagine the back kick and the side kick and the job kick that they might have presented in that those meetings because they feel like they'll be most impacted. As a matter of fact, I had a program here and I'm saying that when the government carry out the procedure to see how they can rescue poor people, they start to cut the hours. And I believe, I think I might have discussed this with you already, I believe that even though you're going to say 10.50 an hour, you have to couple that, you have to marry that with the number of hours. I don't believe any full-time worker should be working less than 40 hours. Because if you increase the rate per hour, but you don't keep it consistent with the minimum number of hours that a full-time worker should have, they'll do all kind of dilly-dallying and make sure that the person only carry home this amount of money. You don't believe it should be tied also to the number of hours that a full-time worker.
What I would say to you is that a minimum wage is pegged to an hour, and not, let's say, a gross. The full 8 hours, 40-hour work week is pegged more to an hour. More, what you'll find happening there is that when you hear minimum wage, most persons equate it to the 40-hour work week, and you hear them say 360,
yeah,
500, or whatever the case may be. Outside of that, or based on what you are saying, the law clearly states that persons who work below 30 hours are considered part-time. Anything over that is considered full-time. What you can't do from the standpoint of the Ministry of Employment and Labour in terms of safeguarding the interests of employees is, in this case, tell employers how much hours somebody should get. And naturally, Mr. Nital, we study these things and we understand that these would be, exactly what you alluded to would be effect of a minimum wage increase. So in some instances, you would have persons who would go home with less, who would be making less hours, practically making the same amount of money they were making before the increase, because that would be the approach of the employer.
That's
why?
wickedness.
Simply because in some instances you want your bottom to remain the same, and the persons who have a higher salary, they're not willing to take less, and so a minimum wage increase mean, if I can pay more salary, then I would have to go home with less someplace, and I don't want to go home with less anywhere. I would say this to you though, based on the data that we would have looked at. Most persons already, from a social security standpoint and other data collected, are already being paid currently above the minimum wage that we have from a gross standpoint, which is 360. You have just 12% of the working population who are actually at the minimum wage, or
Data presented?
Yes, based on the
About
data presented.
Data not presented.
Well, data not presented would be persons who are not registered with Social Security. And of course, we understand that you have those sort of employers out there. And you have, of course, some of those businesses that are not registered at all. No place.
What you see, Johnny?
However, a minimum wage, in terms of salary, is still, they are still impacted by it. Whether they are working, whether they're in the system or out the system, they're still impacted by a minimum wage. Because the employer can pay them based on what the minimum wage is. So they themselves will go home with less too because of the impact of this. So in a sense, you are correct that the impact, an increase of a minimum wage would more impact, quote unquote, those sort of businesses. You understand? More so than the larger corporations. The larger corporations should be able, in most instances, to sustain that increase over a period of time
But you
once
see,
they do the necessary adjustments.
yeah, but then if you realize they start to make contribution to all kind of things, sponsor this, sponsor that, sponsor that. Charity begins at home. They're putting things for sponsorship and things because that would reduce the amount of taxation that they would have to eventually pay the government, so that they're subtracted.
I guess that's why the conversation of productivity would have come up at the level of the minimum wage advisory committee, because one of the things about productivity is that where productivity increases, it means that profit should also increase.
Yes, proportionately.
Good. So if profit increase proportionately, then what you consider the sauce or the gravy should increase too.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if that increase, then you should have a trickle down effect on those who are on the lowest ebb. That's the envision, or that is what we are seeing from this advisory committee. That you could have a productivity council, you could put systems in place, and you could establish ways and means how employees could gain these incentives. That would be, like I said, the spill off or the increase of productivity.
You you might be aware that yes, productivity will increase. What about the Sunday and the Saturdays that people supposed to get time and a half and double time? But instead of giving them that, you tell them, okay, don't bother come work Monday. And that is unfair. You can't make somebody work on Sunday. That's supposed to be double time. And what you do to them is that, okay, don't come work Monday and Tuesday.
Well, in instances,
That is so unfair.
Let me first just state this. Somebody, an employee is entitled to time and a half once he or she would have accumulated hours over the 40 hours within the work week. It is important to understand how your 40 hours are calculated, though.
Mm-hmm.
In some instances, you have a paid lunch hour, and in some instances, you don't have a paid lunch hour. So if you don't have a paid lunch hour, it means that in an 8-hour day, only 7 hours is actually being considered. So if 7 hours are being considered, then that would be 35 hours at the end of a 5-day week. Hence, you would have 5 days
Mm-hmm.
on a Saturday to gain 40, for example. And so if you work on a Saturday, naturally, it don't necessarily mean it is over the 40 hours. The type of working relationship or your employment arrangement will determine whether or not it is overtime. Now, overtime over the 40 hours is time and a half. Double time only kicks in on a public holiday. There's no other time that you can gain.
Sunday.
No, it's only on that public holiday. Double time is on that public holiday, or the 7th day, sorry. My apologies.
Mm-hmm.
But more often than not, you understand, you would hear persons speaking about the double time. They feel as if any hours over the 40 hours in some instances is the double time, and that is not the case here.
Yeah, but I'm telling you that even when somebody works for double time,
Mm-hmm.
whichever way it goes, we have a caller. So, yeah, even when somebody works overtime, get double time, the employer tends to take it back because they get the work done within a particular time frame, right? Because Sunday comes before whatever other days in the week. So then they're now telling you, well, don't come work Monday, don't come work Tuesday. They're basically recompensating themselves with respect to keeping on their...
Oh, I understand what you're saying. So
understand?
you're saying even though they would pay the person at the time and a half or the double at the end of the day, they will
take it back
take
out.
it back
Tell
by...
you don't come Monday, don't come Tuesday.
That happened in some instances, and
But you don't get your work done within a particular time
that happened
frame,
in some
though.
instances. And you see some employers understand the law is there, and if they understand the law, there's a little bit of wiggle room for you to do certain things. And so
Loopholes, yes.
some employers would start an employee under a particular quote-unquote work certain terms and condition of work, and a year or two in the relationship, they change it because they realize this particular terms and condition is not working in my favor. But if I put you on this, you're gonna be working in my favor at this point in time. And I think you and I and the listening audience understand that when persons go into business, they go in business for profit.
With the double time and
Yes, a person's going to business for profit, and when person's going for business to profit, they do whatever it is they have to do to make sure that they are gaining that profit. It is sad though that some employers would be that cunning, so to speak, to
wicked.
Put a system in place for them to benefit, for them alone to benefit, not recognizing that it is on the backs of those persons who are in the trenches, or those persons who are on the line, that you are eating or profiting and the business
financial
end.
empire.
So it is always good that you incentivize these people properly, and you make them feel happy. When you make them feel happy, your productivity, like I'm saying, would increase at a level where it take you beyond leaps and bounds. If people are happy, they work for you more. And if they work for you more, you gain more.
And if they are disgruntled,
they work less.
It can trickle down to society.
Of
and
course.
They decide that the local going to rob you because you have treated us so badly. You have money for us, so you didn't pay for overtime. You didn't pay us double time Sunday. And some people got different coping skills. So when you try to outsmart the workers by not paying them, the reason why people work overtime is to get supplemental
But even
income.
before you go down that road, Mr. Nital, in terms of robbing, you could look at it from a different standpoint. If somebody is unhappy on the job, then psychologically they're not operating for value. It means that they are stressed, and if they are stressed, what you gain from them is not what you really want from them. They're not as productive as they should be. Not only that, they may not be able to give you what you're looking for. And that in itself, if this person is stressed, then that in itself could shift around the room and have other persons behaving in the same manner.
Transference.
Because they are, you understand, part of, if they are family and they have that sort of relation, then you find that it could, like I said, pass off, and they could feel and carry out, you understand, and that in itself could cause the workforce or the culture or the attitude to go a particular that would not be profitable for any business.
The minimum wage pertains to who on a job site? Which employees?
A national minimum wage is a national minimum wage, and it pertains to everybody. The minimum wage is basically saying that's the least amount somebody can work for anybody, by law, for an hour. So it is for anybody. I don't know if you're trying to ask me if
it doesn't transfer to monthly paid workers. If you try to divide the hours they put in and multiply by the hourly rate, it doesn't always translate.
It should if you do it properly. For example, the current minimum wage is $9 an hour. So if you do it by a month, a monthly person's salary at the minimum wage right now would have to be 1560. Yeah, because it is the you would do the $9 times the 40 hours, and then you would times that by 52 weeks, and then you divide that by 12, and that will give you your 1560. You understand? That's how the minimum wage is calculated at a monthly rate. Now, some employers, though, on the other hand, will just tell you the minimum wage is 360, so it's 360 times 4. If you do it 360 times 4, you would never get up to exactly.
But you realize when you have Christmas, and we are told that we are getting double salary, that salary is yours already. Because if you work out the number of weeks in a month, divide the 52 by whatever, you realize there's a whole month lacking. So many astute politicians sweeten your hands by telling you that you're getting a double salary when that salary was actually yours already. If we really sit down and do the mathematics, the double salary is a salary that would have been worked for already.
I recognize that is this conversation is one that has been bantering around even on social media for the past few months, and nobody seemed to come up with the correct answer or what it should be. Of course, some persons thinking just like how you are thinking, and some persons are thinking that it is properly appropriated. You would hear in most instances to that persons who are salary paid, they are not paid against the minimum wage.
Right, and that is true.
And so because of that, they would equate it that when you are given that quote unquote additional salary, considered a double salary, it is actually that and nothing else.
Yeah, because, 12 months in a year, 4 weeks in a month.
Not all months, some months having 5.
Yeah, no, just putting it on average. So 4 times 12 is 48. Right? You still have 4 more weeks there out of the 52.
I guess that's why in some cultures you have 13 months and not 12.
Yeah.
Because they are appropriating for the 4 weeks. That in our system, it is compressed and hidden at times because of the 5 week in some months and the 4 week in some.
Yeah.
And that's why for us in the ministry, when we were looking at way back then when they would have done the competition for salaried workers, they would have done it in that regard where the 52 weeks would have been considered all the time to determine that the wage for a salary person versus that of a weekly person. Like I say to you, if they just use this straight, let's say it's 360, so you pay the person 360, then the person will always lose if it's 360 versus 4.
Because 720, that's 14.
Good. And once you do it the way, like I just alluded to, it would always be, like I said, the 1560, so the person can actually gain what is rightfully is. All the weeks are considered in that particular calculation.
When you have a minimum wage, is the emphasis placed on the net income or the gross income?
The gross income.
Somebody, you're hearing some. Let us take a break and we'll be back.
Fellow citizens, near and far, join Newrish Nital on Sugar Soda 90.3 for Fear No Favor.
Where is the dancer man? No runner come out for war.
Tune in to 90.3 on your FM dial. Log on to SugarCityFMSankits.com or download Simple Radio app from the Google Play Store. And join Newrish Nital every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. as Newrish Nital tackles the issues and take your call. Fear No Favor. Every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. on Sugar City 90.3 FM.
Evening, welcome to Fear in Our Favor. Yeah, we would have lost that one. Yes. Hello. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was
Sam.
saying that when we
Fellow citizens, near and far, join Newrish Nital on Sugar Soda 90.3 for Fear No Favor.
Where is
You ready? Okay, welcome back to Fear in Our Favor. We are now joined by the Honorable Sam Conda, and he's here to fortify the position of his colleague in the person of Genevieve Mills. And I think it is okay that I mentioned that Mr. Conda was the chairperson of that, is the chairperson of that minimum wage committee. So you're explaining to us whether the minimum wage applies to the gross income or the net income.
the gross income.
Gross income.
So when we say the minimum wage is 500, that's the gross income.
Yes.
So after the deductions, they get whatever they get the net. But we mentioned the gross 500. That's the gross, and then after deductions, they get the net.
Do we have certain work environment where persons get the minimum wage and there is no deduction being made, and yet we have others where deductions would come out?
Yeah, I think we have a situation because just the other day when there was an increase, you're in a better position to explain that.
I was explaining to him before you came out, and that was off ear, that persons who make the minimum wage itself, the G60,
Yeah.
well,
There's
at
no
the
deduction.
End, there's
There's
no,
no-
there's the deduction is just the 5%.
You're right. Okay.
For
There's
but
no
pers-
social services.
The
levy.
levy.
The levy is
But
not deducted.
persons who make, if you make a cent over the minimum wage,
The deductions come
the,
in.
the full 8.5% come
Yeah,
out.
Right.
And you have situations in some instances too, Mr. Nital, where some employers they pay the minimum wage and they don't take the deductions out, but they pay what should be the deductible.
Yes.
Yes, so you have instances like that too, where the employee gets the G60, but the deductible, what should be paid on their behalf, is paid still.
Yeah.
We have such
By the
nice-
employer.
Yes, you have
We
some.
have such nice
Yes,
people
you have.
around.
Of course, you have such employers like that. Yes.
Yeah.
I know every time the government makes an effort to introduce a minimum wage and peg it to the hour,
Mm-hmm.
you find that persons reduce the number
Absolutely.
of hours.
Absolutely.
How do we counter that? Can we
Yeah.
put something into law to say that every employer
Mhm.
must pay a minimum of 40 hours per week for a full-time?
No,
Employee.
no, we can't do that. That is why I was saying to the folks. And Nital, I want to thank you for. I was going to wait till the end, but I want to thank you now for agreeing, for requesting. In fact, you made the effort.
Yes.
You're doing this, and I think that is a, commendable idea that you wanted to be part of this, so we could discuss further and spread it wider.
Yes.
And this is exactly what the committee, this is exactly what the government want. And so I want to thank you. And so we are coming here now. This is the final stop. We were on Win FM on Monday morning. We were on freedom issues on Tuesday afternoon. Went to ZIZ last night, and now we are here this evening. And it is through your initiative that's why we are here. And I want to thank you for that, because this is exactly what we want. We want the education and the public relations on this. If we are to be transparent and accountable and to get people to understand. So I really want to thank you for that.
Thanks much. You're welcome.
Yeah, and I'm going on to say now to your question, whether you could legislate. You can't legislate that people must get exactly 40 hours. But that is why I was saying last night that people have to really make use of the trade union, because a trade union could negotiate those terms and conditions of work. You can't legislate them, but you could negotiate them.
Correct.
trade
In a
union could
CBA,
say-
correct.
Yeah,
A CBA.
a trade union.
So a collective bargaining agreement with a
bargaining.
trade union and a company, you could have these things where it would say exactly that nobody You understand?
Yeah,
In the
yeah,
company could get less than the 40 hours a week,
Yeah.
regardless of what. And even if the minimum wage move from here to there, or even if wages move from here to there based on the negotiations, that is exactly what would happen. Because
Because
the CBA would be a binding document that have to go to the court and you agree to the terms and conditions in there. So that's where behold, you'll be held against that.
and you see, you're quite right because people use this. Your minimum wages.
The maximum wage in a lot of
Yeah,
instances.
well, not only that, but you say, look, the minimum wage for 40 hours is that, and then people say, okay, all right, we can give you 30 hours.
Yes, and that is most unfair. It's
Exactly.
counterproductive.
Exactly.
Government can try to do something and you take it upon yourself to
Yeah.
negate the
Yeah, yeah,
impact
yeah,
and purpose that they're
exactly.
trying to achieve.
Exactly.
Very,
Exactly.
very unfair.
Exactly.
So when is there any indication as to when this would materialize?
Well-
or you advise and they decide?
We advise on this side.
Not
but
time
we'll-
frame.
No, but I'm sure you're aware because you're here and people are, making demands. People are saying, look, we need this minimum wage as urgent as possible, as quick as possible. Let me just give you the background.
Mm-hmm.
In March of this year, because you remember it was a campaign issue, the minimum wage and so on, we're going to do that. And in fact, the government, I think, which was the Labour Party in opposition, that made a campaign promise that they're going to increase it to 500, and so on. And so after the elections,
Good evening. Welcome to Fear in Our Favor with the Honorable Sam Conda and Genevieve Mills.
Greetings.
Greetings.
Taking our call. Okay. It was established that the last time minimum wage was visited was about 9 years ago. Okay?
yeah, 9 years ago, you're quite right. Quite right.
So,
2014, yeah, 9 years ago.
yeah. So we are saying that we don't overstand the teeth pulling thing to up it up because it is due, right? No. In terms of the amount, it was stated that what is on the table now is between 4 something and 6 something. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Six,
So
four something and 6, not 6 something.
and 6 something. Right. They had that so far on the table.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We are saying that in terms of what the cost of living is like, we had put a different range on that. We had because when we walk out, the amount of people get on the shopping that have to go on, and the things that have to be taken care of. We had put it between 3 US, which is about 8 EC,
810, yes.
yeah, and 4 years, which is up to 1,000. We had put it there, so. We had put it there, so. That's how we put it, my brother Sam and the other brethren.
Mm-hmm.
And then put it when we see the reality, the touchable reality, how people have to spend money around here. Okay? Now, that might look ridiculous to the system that don't set it from 4 to 6, right? But that's how we put it. But we gone forward now to the teeth pulling thing now, yeah? Concerning the time factor of putting this thing in place. And one time we hear someone say, it will be done in a piecemeal manner. No.
Elder, yeah. I prefer a phased manner than piecemeal.
Phased approaches.
Listeners, we sure other people would like to be part of the program.
Yeah.
But we're going back to the teeth pulling thing there. No, it's for done speedily because it's overdue.
Mm-hmm.
It's overdue.
Mm-hmm.
So, my brother Sam, you're part of the. But I just heard your position. Is it the chairman?
Yeah.
Okay. We beg you, we imploring you to speed up, to ask who it may concern to speed up the process.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep.
thought it overdue.
Yeah.
Thanks to the time, blessed love.
Let me just for completeness, Elder. You could listen off here, but let me just for completeness say that this started in March of this year. The government intended to introduce it somewhere about May. When we met first, we were talking about the beginning of May. And the committee thought that period was too short and they wanted some extra time. And so we extended it a little bit. And so now we have had 2 extensions because the government extended it from May to August. They said, well, we're not going to do it in May as we planned earlier for the Labor Day activities, but we'll do it for Emancipation. That is the August Monday, August holiday weekend. That wasn't possible. And now the date that has been bandied about is for independence. So we're hoping that will come by independence.
Okay. Well, give thanks. So, at least we get in there. But we don't want no more dilly-dally.
Okay. Promise.
Yeah, man. Give thanks.
Okay, right.
You're giving us a chronological development.
Yeah, I was saying that it started in 2004 when the minimum wage was $6.25 per hour. For a 40-hour week, it was $250 per week. Then it was raised in 2008. It went to $7.50 per hour for a 40-hour week, which was $300 per week. And then in 2014, 4 years later, it moved to $9.
6 years later.
No, from 8 to 14, yeah, 6 years later, sorry. It moved from $7.50 to $9, which was what it is now. In 2018, there was a review, 4 years after the 2014. There was a review. A minimum wage was set up like we have done now, but the minimum wage committee advised against raising it. So since 2014, so 9 years, like we say, the minimum wage has been $9.60.
Yes, let me interject here. You said that the minimum wage committee advised the government against increasing the minimum wage.
Well,
did they give reasons?
Yeah, they gave
remember?
reasons. They gave reasons. They did
reasons?
like inflation, the economic conditions of the country, whether businesses were able to pay that and so on. So all the factors that we're looking at now, they were looked at that time, and they thought that it wasn't.
Mr. Kanda, I can fathom that in the sense that if you can give $3, give 25 cents, 50 cents.
Okay.
So they said nothing at all.
Yeah, that
There's
was the
someone
decision.
at the Chamber of Industry and Commerce resisting. I can't help but say, how could you resist increasing the minimum wage for the lower sector of our socioeconomic population? How could we do that?
Yeah.
That's heartlessness. Anyhow, go ahead.
And
Mr.
then
Kanda.
so we're here now in 2023, 5 years later, and 9 years since it was increased in 2014. To look at it, and so we have gone back over all the issues, and we have set up, look at all the statistics, the economic growth, inflation, standard of living, cost of living, the whole works, and so we have made submissions to the government. I don't know if Jenny has said that already. All of the committee, all the members. Like
Stakeholders.
all the stakeholders, that's the better word. Stakeholders like the central bank, Social Security, Consumer Affairs, Ministry of Employment and Labor. We have all made submissions as to what it would be. The unions, of course.
A collective submission?
No, not the individual.
Individual?
Yeah. Each the stakeholder have made individual submissions to
the committee. Okay, that is what
right. And then the committee, which is under the auspices of the Ministry of Employment and Labor, made a submission to the minister, who made the submission to the cabinet. Yeah, and so cabinet will look at that. We take all the factors, all the the statistics that were people from the statistical department and sustainable development, all the different stakeholders. We put them together and made a submission to the cabinet, to the minister.
So
who
you
made
would
it.
have to come to Parliament eventually.
No, Parliament, cabinet.
No, Parliament wouldn't be a part of
No,
that.
cabinet. It goes to cabinet, and then the cabinet decide. You wouldn't be like, you would just
Doesn't
say
have to go
SI or no.
Parliament?
No, SI or
Oh,
no.
okay.
Yes, I know, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Not a legislative thing, not an act.
The minimum wage was legislated, but not the increase.
Yeah,
The
right.
increase is
The
yes,
increase
I know.
is just SI or no. But
So
to
when you
do
get
the
the
increase.
increase, the minimum wage moving
Uh-huh.
to a new minimum wage,
Yeah, a new
so why
minimum.
wouldn't that be legislated?
Because it's just the SI1O.
It's just as SNO you
So
want.
people could do what they want.
No.
No.
You have to comply because there's a minimum
Standing order.
act.
Remember, the minimum
The
act
minimum
is
act
there already.
is there already.
Act is there
So you have
already.
to comply. This is just a SNO to
Yes,
move the
I know.
The wage rate.
right.
It's just the wage rate you're moving.
Yeah.
Basically, everything stays the
Yeah,
same. It's just
yeah.
the wage rate
Yeah.
that is moving.
Yeah.
So what are the what was the fight like? The
Well-
back and forth.
Well,
You said this, he said that.
yeah.
When did you decide that we have reached a compromise? It might have been a very delicate equilibrium
yeah,
to establish.
yeah.
Everybody got their forces.
Yeah,
And I
right.
could imagine certain
Right.
people pulling that
Well,
way.
exactly.
Just like those who said that they don't see the need or the advice against giving an increase in the minimum wage in 2018.
In 2018, yeah.
You might have had some of those persons.
No.
around.
Everybody agree this time. Everybody, all the stakeholders, the chamber, the union, the central bank,
Everybody.
the social security, everybody agreed that there should be an increase. But it is the
The
amount, the
quantity,
quantity,
quantum.
And as you would expect, the union was at one end because the union always fighting for. So the union was at one end, and at the other end you had like the chamber and
Of course.
and so on, like so. So in between there, and then with the Ministry of Employment and Labour took all the information and made a submission to the minister, and they've made it to cabinet. And in fact, there's a lot to work. But let me just talk about. You were saying that you imagine during the time there was a lot of interaction
Back
and
and
so on.
forth,
And I want to commend the members of the committee. They were really committed, conscientious workers. I mean, people were using facts, statistics to make the case. Of course, you could use statistics anyhow you wanted to say what you wanted to say. And but people were presenting the case in a passionate way, and people were committed. They worked hard. They were going beyond the call of duty and making the case. And so it was a real interactive and passionate exercise and activity to get people to come to positions. But it was a really interesting exercise, which we all learned from.
So who went to cabinet to deliver the position? You?
No. The minister. The minister. Yeah, we make
Met with the minister.
met with the minister. The minister.
Bring up to date, and then
and then she formulate the cabinet submission, which come from the ministry, and it goes to. And let me just add one thing, because I think you will be interested in it. After we made the submission, the Prime Minister still introduced this subcommittee, cost of living committee, to further get information to make sure that he's on the right track. And so he convened a cost of living subcommittee independent of the
Minimum
wage
advisory
committee to do this, to look at it, to make sure that we get it right. And so that was an input into the decision. So I believe the government is ready now to make it. One additional thing which I think is very important, when you talk about minimum wage and so on, productivity, as I'm sure you're aware, is part of how you're going to increase your minimum wage. And so the government went to the extent, in fact, more than the government, the Minister of Finance, because the Prime Minister wants us to do a productivity thing, because we have decided that one of the things we have to try to do when you raise the minimum wage is to increase productivity. You would know increasing productivity would increase output and
Gross domestic product.
Good. And so we decided that we want to look at productivity, and we want to set up a productivity committee, right, and which would be housed in the Ministry of Labour, to make sure that is something that the country is aware of. And so we decided that we wanted to do that. There was a gentleman who I knew before, who I contacted in Barbados. I mean, a gentleman by the name of John Pilgrim, who decided that he would come and do it for us. He do this productivity seminar with us. And it was costing us something, and, it was probably in the middle of the year, not probably, in the middle of the year when, budget was tight at that time. And so the Ministry of Labour didn't have the funds to do it. I suggested that we could twin up with the private sector, the chamber, and share the cost. The guy said that he will do it at cost. He wouldn't charge us no consultancy fee. He will just do it at get his airfare and his hotel accommodation. So I suggested to the chamber that they could do the accommodation, get one of the folks in the hotel and so on, and the government could do the airfare. There was no agreement on that, and I reported that to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister said, okay, I will do it from my office. I will get the Ministry of Finance to fund that. So the Prime Minister, using his initiative as Minister of Finance and Prime Minister, to get that. The gentleman was here, and he conducted the sessions. We had 2-day sessions, one on the 30th of August and one on the 31st of August, and he, prepared us now to go forward in terms of making this announcement. We have that was the last piece to the puzzle to get it in place, and so we have done that now, and so everything is in place now. It is just for what we are doing now is part of sensitizing the public, the education and the public relations to make sure that
But the issue of minimum wage used to fall under a different ministry.
No.
Did they find it a bit inappropriate for that ministry and maybe change it over to another ministry?
No, minimum wage was always the Ministry of Labour.
The Ministry of Labour?
Was always the Ministry of Labour.
Remember, it was just established. I remember we just established a minimum wage in 2004. Before that, you had no ceiling. You had no cap persons.
Right.
You had different denominations. So you had some persons who were working for this and some persons working for that.
Yep.
And the government stepped in and said, we want to create a level ceiling so everybody could feel balanced. And that came about in 2004. So we just about 20 years next year for the creation of that particular legislation.
Why we had to introduce this minimum wage thing? Because the absence, the demise of the trade unions. Because
correct.
before that, people were able to negotiate the terms and conditions and the wages and salaries. And so, but after 1980, when the Paminapi administration, the union was sort of emasculated, sort of almost destroyed, or almost put out of being effective and so on.
Good evening. Welcome to Fear in Our Favor.
Reaching forwardly. If an active union, right, will make things better for the workers, why we don't have that in place?
Well,
why that is not in place?
Because people don't understand the value and the importance of the trade union movement. Like I was just explaining, before 1980, we had an effective, vibrant trade union movement, which really got wages and conditions of work to a level of satisfaction. The moral of the workforce, the discipline, the punctuality and all of that was as a result of the trade unionism. But that was, like I say, emasculated in about 1980 and thereabout. And since that, we haven't had an effective, efficient trade union movement.
which understandable, which means that the workers are creating their own obstacles.
Absolutely. Because it leaves to the workers. The workers must see the value in this and the benefits they get from trade unionism. And from it, I mean, that became clear during the COVID time. You know, workers, the employers were able to do the things they did because people weren't unionized.
It's terrible. The situation is terrible.
Yep.
Yeah, it's terrible. I mean, yeah. Anyhow, we continue to listen. Give thanks to the information.
Okay.
With respect to the trade union, let us put it out on the table.
Mm-hmm.
It was once said that when the Labour administration was in power, the trade union took a soft side to not let the Labour government look bad. Then when the administration changed, they become more aggressive towards the Pamanapia or whoever. What are your views on that? Because I think we can do much better with this trade and Labour union.
Yeah, of course.
We can do much better.
Well, I mean, you would know, because I think you've been around for some time, and you would know that how the trade union come about. The trade union came about as a result of the Mowing Commission. Before 1940, trade union came into being in 1940. Before that, there was no trade union. It was illegal to form trade union. The trade union came about as a result of the buckles uprising, when workers, down tools and asked for increase in wage, and then what happened with the uprising and so on. Not only in St. Kitts, but throughout the region. The Mowing Commission was sent to the region to investigate the difficulties with colonies then, and they recommended that, part of the things is workers' dissatisfaction, ill health, education, and they made recommendations, including the formation of trade union. So from 1940, we had a trade union. And so from that time, the trade union negotiated wages and conditions of work right up to 1980, when Pam and Napi got into power. Before that, it was the trade union acting, well, like we know, it was part of the labor movement, and so there was collaboration and so on. In fact, a number of things benefited the workers from that time. You had things like the 40-hour working week, like we're talking about now, where people didn't have to work around the clock, 24 hours a day, 40 hours working week, holiday with pay, workmen compensation, and all those stuff. Those were benefits that people get from the trade union movement, which were legislated by the government. So you had them benefits. But the PAM NRP always felt that the Labour Party used the union as part of their
campaign apparatus.
Exactly. And so, without trying to separate the issues, they just basically almost outlaw the union. I mean, they introduced, they disbanded the clothes shop where you used to deduct union dues at source, the employers used to be able to deduct union dues, which made it easier because people don't like to pay dues, and that was a situation where the union were able to, finance itself because you had a clothes shop.
Like a wage reduction.
Make
it here before
exactly,
you get paid.
Exactly, right. And you had a clothes shop where once you work, for example, you work in the breweries, the deduction came off for everybody, whether you were a union member or not. Those were arrangements that were made.
But that was legal, no?
Yeah, a part of the CBA.
Yeah, a part of the agreement.
A part of the CBA. Once the CBA it takes effect, whether you're a part of the union or not, you are guaranteed under that. You're protected by it.
Yeah. You get the benefits.
You get the benefits of it. Whether you're a paying member or not, you get the benefits of the CBA.
Yeah.
But if you're not a paying member, you have an issue. Could you take it to them and they actively?
Yes.
They have to because they have the 50+1 and they cover the CBA, so they have to deal with you.
Yeah. But like I said, it was used politically without seeing the difference between the workers and the politics. And so the permanent government used that to really destroy the workers' movement. And that is why we are today.
And could I support the former minister and chairman, the Ministry of Employment and Labour? We would like to see vibrant unions, be it the Sinkage Trade and Labour Union. We understand the importance of union.
Yeah.
With the absence of the union, the ministry is caught in the middle of outing fires.
Yeah.
When we should be dealing with mediation and conciliation.
That's right.
Safeguarding the law, giving advice where where law needs to be changed based on what is happening in the world of work or what is happening.
What
in
is
the,
bottlenecking all of that? What are the major challenges?
like I said, the major challenges is people understanding the importance of togetherness, the importance of togetherness and the purpose of unions and how they would gain more. So I guess the union itself
Have a role and responsibility.
to educate their people.
Yeah.
The Ministry of Employment and Labour have a role, and we played that role as well. And at the end of the day, you see, safety and understanding what is for you, it begins with me and you as an individual. And so we need to understand the importance of union ourselves.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to Fear in Our Favor with Mr. Genevieve Mills and the Honorable Sam Conda.
Greetings forwardly. You know, the situation remind me just today. Oh, by the way, blessed Africa and CARICOM Day. Yeah?
Thank you, brother.
The situation remind me of a reasoning we had today because I'll come up today say a day like today and we not see no sign of it amongst the masses of the people, you know, and it is such an achievement because we're getting closer ties with the continent from where we are from.
That's right.
And I had to make the point and say the people, the masses of the people are so caught up with bread and butter issues. Yeah? And then there's a lot of isms and schisms around that takes away that kind of thinking away from the people. That is the reason why it is like that. And when I listen with the situation concerning the absence of the union, the people not being unionized and they're not getting the fullness of the deal because being unionized, it's just like a similar situation to me. And it's very unfortunate when education will do a lot, yes, but it's something like the nastiness we see around. We have said that in terms of the nastiness, education, yes, but we also have to tax a lot of people's pocket. You know, someone made a point and say in the Virgin Islands they had the same nastiness littering, and then they tried to say that it was policy. If you drop a piece of paper, you pay $1,000, and right away Charlotte O'Malley become clean. Yeah. So it is said that sports make water go uphill. Sometimes we have to do things. We have to do things for people to benefit, even when they themselves do not have the will to do it. Are you? So somewhere along the line, yeah, somewhere inside of this journey here, something has to be done so that the people the workers can benefit as they benefit from their. Because remember, you know, we are a people, you know. We are a people who work and work and work for hundreds of years without pay. That's where we're coming from, you know. Therefore, up to the time 2023, according to the Western Gregorian calendar, workers should be taken care of. Hey, work is a serious thing, you know. You know what people don't have it in to get up out of the bed and work for people? No. When you see somebody get up out of the bed and go work, you know, it's a serious something that, you know, is a very serious thing. Because a lot of people don't do that. They just don't see themselves doing that, working for people. I'm not talking about people who is self-employed. You know, a lot of these people who will not get up and go for work. They don't work nowhere at all. They're not self-employed either. So, you know, this thing you really need. But best wishes. We want to extend best wishes to the committee. Yeah,
Thank you.
best wishes.
Thank you.
And once again, let's try and eliminate the tardiness.
Okay, thanks much.
Yeah,
I
I just want to add before you go
Yeah.
that St. Kitts, well, it started in St. Kitts. Now St. Kitts is the country that has the less union representation.
We are probably the weakest in the region.
Yeah, I mean Antigua, Barbuda, Dominica, St. Vincent, and St. Lucia, and Grenada, all those countries, and not only OECS in CARICOM, Jamaica.
And you're correct.
Barbados got a union for everything.
It started here.
Started here. I
It
know
started
we are the weakest because, and in fact, we have a private sector that is more monolithic than any other private sector in the region, I mean, probably in the world.
No, you're right. But I want to put, we spoke about education, and sometimes we have the wrong persons trying to impart the knowledge. Because I believe in our quest to get the union revitalized and going in numbers. Some of the educators would have to be politicians.
Yep.
Because what would have happened is that politics would have polarized us so considerably.
Exactly.
That even when we are supposed to be having mere discussions, to be having debates.
That's right.
It and everything would have to be debated.
Yep.
And if politicians come down and do what is best for the country, we would have more people being part of the union. The last Labor Day march we had, the young lady in charge, Precious her name is?
Secretary
Yes.
Precious Mills. Yeah.
She indicated that she would be walking with some documents, and they'll be placed at the village school area where persons can come and fill out forms and indicate their intention to join the union. I would like to know what the feedback was like, because we have a situation here where people don't like to fill out forms. And I think if we can get something more simple, you come in, BAP, you give the information, you walk with a witness, BAP, you're part of the union. St. Kitts people do not like to fill out forms.
Yeah.
And I think that the educators would have to be politicians from all 5 parties.
Yeah. In fact, that's a very interesting that you should say that, because one of the things I say all the time is that pre-1980, pre-PAM Labour administration, you had the Labour Party administration, which trade union, it was thriving and, flourishing and so on, effective trade union. PAM NRP came and decimate, annihilate, emasculate, whatever word you want to use, the union. But then you had a Labour Party administration from 1995 to 2015. That's 20 years. And I don't believe anything was done to revitalize, to resuscitate, and so on. That is where the discussion should have started in the country. And you say, bring all the positions on board to give people the value of trade unionism, the importance of trade unionism to the development of the country. It is workers who grow the country, who promote the country. Economic growth come from the workers, and mainly the low-income workers. And there was an absence of any education and debate and discussion.
And the sugar cane crop got a lot to do with it.
Yeah, of
because
course.
those are persons who are really disadvantaged and crave and scream for representation.
Yep.
After you bring this manufacturing industry and people feel that they were making so much money per hour, they did not see the need for any representation.
Yeah.
And the opportunity, we dropped the ball during that period of time.
Absolutely.
You understand? Sugar cane gone, okay. But come on, we got to be sensible. We need to have people being unionized.
Yeah.
And the effort is being made, but who making the effort? I think some people got to get more involved.
Yeah.
More involved. I would like to know the result of that effort though during the Labor Day march.
Well, you would have to speak exclusively with Precious from the union end in terms of where and if the numbers would have increased after that, and to what level. But that, for me, I'm hearing you say that, to me, that was a great initiative by the union, at least to, let's say, to almost gone mobile to see if they could assess and reach the workforce. Perhaps the union could be even more innovative, and it's not really innovative. Go back to the old days. Go where the people work.
So why
that's
not,
where it started.
introduce it in school?
Exactly.
The history books
That's-
and we
exactly.
reading over
Exactly.
superfluously about union,
American history. You're correct. We should put about
Put our
our
own
history, and if it
union
is there,
in the history.
people would understand and gravitate to them and recognize the importance of
People don't have a
union.
clue.
I studied in Trinidad, for example, and would you believe while I was in Trinidad for that short time, I was unionized? You believe? Yeah, I was a part of a union. I never got to no union meetings, but I paid my dues, and I did a little, I had to do some internship there at an institution, and the union, of course, would have protected me if needs be. And it is important. We are not, as a people, we are not where we should be. From a collective, it's like we're looking at things from an individual standpoint. We don't recognize that if we come together as a people, we could achieve so much more. I remember the day when I went to the union. It was about 6 of us who signed up the same time. Because once these young persons who were much younger than me recognize, oh, this is what a union do. These people decide they ain't going to work for nobody unless they're protected.
Yeah.
They want to be protected
And you know the cost of a union. You know
and
how
it was
much
cheap. And guess what? Everybody paid on the spot. And that was it.
Yeah.
It's so cheap it be. And
cheap.
they paid on the
What,
spot.
$250 a year? I think it's $5 a week. That's just a Carib, or 2 Carib, and the benefits you get out of that are enormous. And people don't want to do that. That is in your interest, because people telling you don't let nobody take out your money and don't let nobody all kind of foolishness.
Apparently, the cultural environment, because just like insurance, we pool our risk together, we pay our insurance.
Exactly.
You might have 1,000 persons insuring, but you might have only 50 persons making claim throughout the year. You understand? So the insurance make a bulk of profit. So some people feel paying the dues. How many of us would get representation for that particular year?
But it's the pooling of the thing.
It matters not.
When
When you're going to need representation, and so you should always prefer it.
In fact, Nital, that is such a powerful point. You understand? Because that is what part of the job of the minimum wage committee. We want to get people to understand the philosophy of corporatism. That is how you're going to benefit, supporting each other. And so especially in the sector, the informal sector, if people understand the philosophy of corporatism, they will see the benefits that you could get from the pooling resources.
And to support the chairman, that's why I say the conversations that we had at the minimum wage advisory committee, it was at that level. We spoke about if people understand, like you say, how cheap it could be if they come together and purchase goods. Everyday needs, everyday supplies.
Economy of scale.
Instead of me going and buy a bleach, why we don't come together and buy a case of bleach?
Yeah.
The two of us come together, get a case of bleach, and we distribute the amount again amongst us, and we save because we're buying in bulk. I'm saying these are the discussion we had at the level, and that's where you see we are here doing this, and we are hoping the other stakeholders as well would recognize the importance of their going out and doing their own sensitization, so the general public could be more informed about all the nuisances that are behind that you can't see, because there's some stuff that we could see and there's some stuff that we can't see. And the things that we can't see are the stuff that are more trivial and causing us to collapse.
You made a good reference there to the bleach. But if you hit it home properly, you know that St. Kitts Navy is too small to put in their own orders for medication. A lot of us don't know that.
Yeah, you're correct.
So
and
what-
if you come
what-
together as a region,
That
Oh,
is
you
what
see
they
us?
do.
A block.
Yep.
Barbados or one of those countries usually order in bulk
St. Lucia, that's
to
the-
effectuate
that's
the
where
economy of scale,
yeah,
St.
yeah,
Lucia.
yeah, St. Lucia.
And then they retail it
That-
down
that-
to
that's where
the smaller
the-
island
yeah,
because
yeah.
we don't have sufficient demand
Yeah, we have
to
that.
go out there on our own and get. So we have to get it from where we get.
That is what they call functional cooperation.
Yeah, we just missing it. The education is not out there. People think education means the square root of 9 is plus or minus 3. But we really need to educate the people. And if we do not take trade unionism to the schools, we are going to become very circular in our efforts, trying to get people to be a part of the
That's
process.
right. That's right.
you're correct. You need to be a part of the
You got to be a part of the
the
school system.
yes. If you want to change a generation, you're going there in 10 years or less. You could have that sort of change
You have to start
across
there.
because the children would end up go home and ask their parents questions, and these questions would trigger the parents to want to find out more about the union, and they themselves being intrigued would become members, and then the next crop of workers coming up would automatically want to be a part of the union because
See,
they understand
and
the
I really
importance.
don't understand. At the cost, what it costs you to be a union member, I don't see the benefits far outweigh the cost. I mean,
But if they don't know how they can wait, you see, we have to say it. With respect to the minimum wage, though, is there a projected period of time where a review
well,
would be done?
yeah, we want to make this a standing committee rather than reviving it every 4 years or so. We want to, that's what we're going to recommend to the government, that this is a standing committee. And you go on and you do it on a like annual or biannual or whatever period, so you don't have to go to create a committee again to go over what we are doing.
So shouldn't it be like a living document, so
Exactly,
to speak?
exactly.
So that
Exactly.
members take notes.
Exactly,
Like people
exactly.
working in the field
Exactly.
take notes,
Exactly.
give feedback.
Exactly.
Because you might have a
Exactly.
particular item in the basket
Yeah.
of goods,
Uh-huh.
and you realize that
That one
item
changing.
they're gone.
Yeah,
We bring in
that
a
one
new
changing.
one.
Yeah,
But we ain't
exactly.
adding in
Exactly.
that. But the consumers
Exactly,
utilizing
and,
that
and,
more.
and in fact, we want to make the consumer affairs more effective. You want to increase their compliance and make them more active. Like they say, give them some teeth
yeah.
in order to make sure that the
But they need to do the field work. If you give them tea, they got to do the field work.
yep.
Because during the rough times we had persons who maybe bought in an item at $5, had it in storage, and then the new one came in at $8, and they're selling both of them now
the same
at
price.
$8, and
For
it
the
can be. You got stock valuation, first in, first out, last in, last out. You're 5 for life and you have your AFCA. And for you to put the new price on the old goods, and consumers are fear aware of that, and they did not go to the authorities to make a formal complaint, man, that is being complicit, man. You can't do that. You can't do people that when everybody's suffering and you throw your new price and the old stuff. Yeah? And they're getting away with that. What can we do to get people comply?
Where the
How is the
compliance
private
increases.
sector? How is the private sector viewing the minimum wage? They're aware of what might be said.
Yeah, they're
Information
part
has
of
been
it.
disseminated
They're
already.
a part of the committee.
Yeah, but we advise, and the pertinent stakeholders, the
Yeah.
big guys, would decide.
Yeah. But
Is there
in
any
fact,
decision coming soon?
that's a
Mr.
good question.
September?
That's a good question you ask. You're really on the ball, because the committee that I told you that the Prime Minister set up is as a result of the recommendations from the minimum wage committee.
Minimum wage committee.
They were protesting, and they went to the Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, and so he established his committee, what we call the committee,
Cost of living.
cost of living and
Task
and,
force, really, yeah.
and that kind of committee, in order to get a fuller understanding of what's happening in response to the chambers, the private sector, difficulties
Yeah.
with what was happening.
Discomfort.
Discomfort.
Yeah, I'm trying to tell. They're not easy, you know. Could imagine the banter, but we ain't going for that.
Exactly.
But
Exactly right.
We have to help out, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, what do you see with the minimum wage?
Mm-hmm.
I believe, yes, things will change, but the disparity between minimum wage and a livable wage,
Yeah.
how do you speak to that, though? You think that our minimum wage would have narrowed that gap between
That is what we
minimum
want to
wage
do.
and livable wage?
In fact, you will like this quotation from the. I had it here somewhere. I hope I have it with me. The quotation from the ILO director, because you're talking about the
International
inequality.
Labour Organization.
Yeah, you're talking about the inequality and the purchasing power of the
Yes.
minimum wage. That's what you're talking about. And he has this quotation which I really love. He says, "Income inequality and poverty will rise if the purchasing power of the lowest paid workers are not maintained." He said, in addition, a much needed post-pandemic recovery could be put at risk. He said this could fuel social unrest across the world and undermine the goal of achieving prosperity and peace for all.
I like how you said that, because I was telling Genevieve that if we don't get it right, it could lead to a lot of robberies and misbehavior.
Exactly. Spot on.
You understand?
Spot on. That is what we're
we gotta
talking
get
about.
it. That equilibrium there might
Yeah,
be
yeah.
a bit delicate.
Yeah.
But we have to try to see how we can reduce that differential between minimum wage
The inequality
and,
in
right.
yeah, exactly.
You see
Inequality in wages and the inequality between the minimum wage and the livable wage. I mean, Jenny will be making that point excellently. The minimum wage and the livable wage.
And as long as you reduce that as much as you can practically do for a period of time, be for a period of time, because this thing is not static. We're going to get
Correct, it's
changes.
fluid, yeah. And I don't think, and I made the statement a few weeks back at one of our sittings at the committee stage. I don't think we would ever be at a point where, and this isn't me being realistic, I don't think
Superimposed.
we would never be able to have a livable wage. I don't think, I'm not seeing it in my lifetime where you would have a livable wage applicable with persons able to live comfortable with whatever minimum barrier is set or whatever livable barrier is set. We are so far behind now that to get it where it should be. The truth is, what the union is recommended is what would take us closest to it. And we can't get there because to get there is an astronomical increase.
Astronomical, yeah.
You look at a 60-something% increase, almost 100% in the minimum wage. Who would be able
quite
to?
100%.
I say almost 60. Who would be able to take on that? You understand? Most businesses would not be able to sustain that.
right,
Not even
okay.
the government would be able to
Okay.
cushion the fall. And so.
Right.
If we are this far off and we are trying to get it to where you think it would be, you understand? Like I say, you have the least residual risk. You understand?
It could happen. It could happen, but it's whether or not
But
it
remember,
could be sustained.
but remember,
It could happen for a month. It could happen for 2 weeks, but it cannot be sustained.
and it could happen if it could happen
Yes.
if and when certain things in the market change, because if the cost to get goods here decreases, and we the consumers could see it in the market and the market force, then we could get here. But Mr. Nital, we know that ain't happening. When the cost reach up here, more often than not, you don't get back here where you think it should.
But some people just
we don't feel the
profiteer.
impact.
No, they're profiteering.
And we should
They're
feel
not
it.
walking along with the society. They're profiteering. If they're making a profit of $100 and they have to reduce the profit to 98, they prefer to let off 2 or 3 workers.
Exactly.
And maintain.
And make
So
the
the profit is
motive.
they're
Yeah.
profiteering. They're taking
Yeah.
advantage.
Yeah.
And
I guess
think-
that's
Yeah.
why the chairman keeps saying, speaking about the monolithic approach that he would have observed with his years of wisdom. Understand? That's why he would put it that way, because it's just to make that dollar.
Yeah.
You see, we
Bottom
have-
line,
we
profits.
We have certain companies here they have a monopoly. But when you have a few of them, you call it an oligopoly, right? And they're taking advantage of the people. They're taking advantage. You know, all the cheap places you could go to get a particular car part, for example. And they cheer them down away, they do the meeting, drink up the wine and so. And they say, well, look, we ain't falling below $4,000 for that, you know. But where else you going to go? Those are the persons who going to bring in these stuff. They have no sympathy, no empathy. And I believe some of them are what you call psychopaths, where the part of the brain responsible for empathy is underdeveloped inside of them. Or they just hardened criminals. I mean, come on, the government trying to work and work. And because, you know, only a few of you got control over this thing, you have no mercy at all. Person is supposed to be going up and up and up. I hear the Prime Minister say that they gave certain concessions so that the cost of food could come down. And you can go in no supermarket, none, and experience the impact of that concession.
Exactly.
Nothing pass on to the consumer.
Exactly.
Those persons got to be responsible for a lot of social badness were going on according to Charters, the bandit factory. They're helping to produce bandits. You get concession and we're going in the supermarket and the price higher than before you get the concession. Oh, that could be. You're not passing on anything.
And to some extent, you're correct. It's just a few weeks ago we had the VAT, and you had persons showing you on social media that the price for something was this last week, and now the price for it this week is this. It's higher because now the VAT is being excluded, but the companies still want to profit at the same level. So they increase the price that when the VAT is removed,
they're manipulating.
They're still getting the same figure that was there all the time, and so it's like
that should be
it goes back to our consumer, you understand, department having the necessary legislative power and the enforcers to go out and do this work to make sure that we are protected.
They're sitting down in the office.
Well,
consumer affairs work should be 70% field work and 30% office. Because if you don't go out there to investigate,
you can't really see what's happening. You can't feel it, and you can't.
You go with a list, you
make
buy
changes.
them, you walk with money, you know, for the occasion, you buy, and then you go back maybe a week and a half, you buy the same items, and see what happened. You got concession. How come the prices of these things are not down? But some people afraid to offend too. Some people afraid to offend. Sometimes we know the offenders, them, you know. But for particular reasons, we can really hit them head on. You understand? Something they might be good to a political party. They allow you certain things, and you say, but we know that guy violating, you know, but we can't say anything. When campaign time come back over, we can't go back to the man. No, serious. You got to be real harsh if you really and truly can represent the poor and those who are really trying to keep things together. You ain't got to be harsh, you ain't got to lose some friends. And friends mean some big company too. You might just got to fall out of favor with them. God gonna provide, let it fall out of favor. It's too hard, man. Real hard on people when government trying its best. And them they want government ministers to bruise their knees to beg them to walk along with us. Why? You give a double salary in December. They don't even want to give you $10 bonus for your Christmas. And this thing about you're working for 25 years.
Yeah.
And time come for you to finish.
You go home with nothing.
They give you, but the fella up her name by. His name just sell foods and thing. What his name? The young fellow. Gary. A basket of fruits. And you gotta go home and eat them quick because they're perishable. You gotta call your neighbor, here a banana, here this, here. They're not giving. How could you work 25 years and help somebody build a financial empire?
Yeah.
And they're leaving you after 25 years. And you give them a basket of fruits? Perishable goods? Man, come on, man. I believe that there should be a law forcing private sector to give a gratuity to the long-term workers. Nobody can tell me we can't do it. Just do it. In any democracy, there's some degree of dictatorship. No, there must be some degree of dictatorship. They can't go on treating people like that, Sam. No, serious. If you really a true humanitarian at heart, you must feel for people. 28 years and a basket of fruits. No, that can't be. They got to have some. By the way, they did do something where 10 years up on the industrial side.
Yeah.
But
That's
who
some
can
good
handle
truth.
that?
You
The
have
government?
long service gratuity. The
Long
government
service, yeah.
handles that.
Yeah.
You have
So the
persons-
employers are paying into that fund?
yes, they're paying to it. Similar to the severance, you have persons who, and it's only two sectors who are currently impacted by that. The tourism, but tourism directly into the hotel and tourism, and those in manufacturing.
Yeah.
With that particularly long service gratuity. And yes, employers basically pay a small percentage.
And government subsidize that as well?
Yes, just like the
So government
severance,
must subsidize and subsidize and
just like the
subsidize.
severance payment fund.
Boy, the government subsidizing a lot, you know.
A lot.
But that's
A
the
lot,
you know,
that's the
over-subsidizing.
conversation for the increase of the minimum wage too. That's for the government to quote unquote
Government can't
wean
pull-
themselves
can't pull
out.
back, no.
But,
you know,
but they
How we
have
gonna have
to.
fun?
They have to because they can't continue. We can't continue
You know-
to pay that wage bill, Mr. Nital. The chairman can give you a little.
you know,
Some figures.
the social programs is $250 million, $250 million.
Yeah.
That-
gone to-
Yeah, that is a quarter. That is what? A quarter of the budget, you know. A quarter of the budget, yeah. A quarter of the budget. A quarter of the money we collect in the government, for the government, goes into social programs. $250 million a year.
So
That ain't nothing to do with the reduction in the VAT and the reduction in the corporate taxes and so on, corporate income tax and so on. This is monies that the government spend, and you know the government get the money from taxes. So
Yes.
the government collecting less in taxes but spending more.
Subsidizing more.
more in it.
I have a tough question for you though.
Mhm.
When VAT was introduced,
Mhm.
it was introduced to offset the monies for the IMF.
Mhm.
That was at the nucleus of it. Well, if you don't pay off that, how come this VAT still like a nose around our neck? You feel like it would ever decrease to
Well,
maybe 10%, 12%?
I believe so. That is something that the government has to look at, you know, the VAT, because
But those were some of the recommendations from this committee to the government.
those some recommendation.
to-
In fact,
to consider.
in fact, the government reduced some of the
They did,
some of the
based
VAT.
on some of the recommendations that we gave.
the
They would
government
have give, they would
reduced
give
some of the VAT,
some
the VAT.
longer extensions
Yeah.
to some of the import
Yeah. In
duties
fact,
and that kind of stuff.
when
that
the
were there.
government
Temporary.
reduced
Yes.
VAT
So
in,
what about the permanent reduction?
They would,
Well,
they would
yeah.
have to look at that. They would have to look at that somewhere and determine
Mhm.
if and to what extent they would be able to remove any of the VAT and we survive comfortably as a federation.
They
Because
need a VAT committee, you know.
well, I'm hoping that they have one.
No. Well,
Yeah, we
the
need to look at that.
Ministry of Finance is a VAT committee.
By
Those are the
itself,
people
yeah.
who advises the
The government in that
who
area. Yes.
advises the
We're
government.
not
and-
getting any movement. That's stagnant. We're not any movement in that unless it's a special time. Well, are you happy now that several times a year now you could get your VAT reduction?
At least 3 times.
Especially for school
Yeah,
supplies.
Yeah.
But in fact, people take advantage of the school supplies concessions that they had. Some people tell you go buy a uniform and they tell you that they did not bring it to the port. But what about the raw material? We didn't make the raw material here.
We don't make material here for
Right,
most
but they
things,
make
yes.
this stuff so they're saying they cannot give you any discount because the material didn't come to the port.
But remember, it's not in some. Remember to.
What do you mean it didn't come to the port? Where the material
You
come
know,
to?
You know, if you bring in books up the
Mm-hmm.
port, a book might be $2. You sell it for $1.35. But when you go to certain uniform makers, tailors and seamstresses, they're telling you that their final product was an island already. But the raw material had to come to for them to make the
Exactly.
final. You know, they're just finding a way to take advantage.
Or to not
Yeah.
participate in the VAT reduction.
Yeah, Anyhow, we'll work on that, Sam. We have a lot of work to do. But am I hearing a voice, a silent voice, that by bringing the minimum wage upwards, the government could now counter and reduce the subsidies that they're giving? That would be disastrous, Mr. Condon?
No, no, we're not saying that
Some
at all.
movement had to be made.
Yeah,
but they have to be very selective.
Yeah. We're not saying that at all. In fact, we're talking about the livable wage and the minimum wage. I mean, that is why, and when we're talking about livable wage, we're talking about $2,500 a month. And that is why the government has this thing about giving the PAP to people who live in a household with less than $3,000 a month. That is the basis. That is the mean test to get the PAP, because they see that as the benchmark of people needing assistance. That is what we call the livable wage. And so the government will have to, still have to look at providing the subsidies, in order to keep the standard of living.
I heard it, Mr. Condon, I heard it from Jen, that it seems as if you are indicated, very implied, not excessively, that once the minimum wage goes up, the government could pull back a little bit.
Well, not pull back, but move some of the subsidy from one area into another portal. Instead of, if you're going to increase a minimum wage, for example, then you would have some households now moving the threshold.
To the 3,000.
Instead of now being here, you're going to be over here. So instead of this household getting this 500, this subsidy now move from here to somebody else, you understand, who can make that and who need it. But it's not a matter of, let's say, the government trying to increase a minimum wage to totally remove subsidies, or to say that they're not going to give subsistence. They can. I don't think that is.
Genevieve, I don't believe
it's
whatever
possible.
Increase in minimum wage would be taking a lot of people over $3,000 a month.
Well, remember, it's a household. Remember, where that is concerned is a household and not individuals.
Yeah, but persons who you have on the PAP below 3,000, yeah, it might just take a little increase to get them over. So when they get over, they come off.
I don't know how. I don't
know.
know.
I really don't. This PAP thing got me.
I don't know how. I don't know how that. I don't
confused.
know. I don't know how that goes. I am not a part
No,
of that.
well, I mean, no. There's no confusion. I mean, that's the qualification. If the household, collectively
It's below
$3,000, that's when you qualify for the PAP. If you're getting anything excess, that is why they say
How
that.
much in excess?
Anything over $3,000.
It matters not, because think about this. Think about this.
So that means I might as well say by 29.
But remember, we had the conversation earlier we had this conversation earlier too, and we even had these conversations, and we debated this at the minimum wage level. The current minimum wage is $9 an hour. So anything at $3.60 and below, you only pay the 5%. If you are sent over, you pay the 8.5%. And it was
So you're worse
argued
off.
and proved in our meetings that some employers will put somebody over there to take back all of that, and now they're going home with less. And so you even had the argument, can you specify or say specifically that the deductible, you understand, would not come out unless it passed this particular threshold. The chairman can tell that these conversations will advance because we recognize that these things happen as well.
Well, I know the government is helping, subsidizing a lot. I think an area in which we can do a little better is kind of the rate of water.
Carrying up the rate?
A little bit. We could pick up. And government is the main culprit of utilization of water. They have a lot of leaks in that.
Or the conservation of water.
Government?
Government. What said they need to improve
But also the conservation, I think I understand what Nital is saying is so that they could increase the cost. right? That's
Yeah,
what you're
yeah,
saying?
no, no.
Yeah.
He's saying the cost, but he's saying part of the what we have to do is to go into water
More,
conservation
from a
of
government.
water. Yeah.
Yes,
Government
yes,
thing
yes,
just
yes.
don't consult.
Yeah.
And I have a question a little bit outside the minimum
Individuals too, you know. I think we need a education on that in conservation of water. I don't think people.
wage. We wasting. We
Yeah,
feel
yeah,
that nobody
yeah.
could tell me what to do with,
With
it
me
because
water because I
I'm
pay
paying for it.
me $20
Yeah,
for it.
yeah,
Yes, you're
yeah,
correct. That's the
yeah.
mentality.
I have a technical question for you.
Mhm.
You're buying 1,000 tanks
Mhm.
for persons to be better able to hold water.
Mhm.
Climate change, we're not getting the rainfall that we're accustomed to.
Mhm.
But it's the same potable water they're going to take to fill up those things.
Mhm.
I don't understand the logic in it.
Mhm.
If they're going to take the potable water from the pipe to
Yeah.
fill up the tanks,
No. The tanks are not for potable water. Not for the
Where
water.
the
for
water
pipe.
can come
It's
from?
the rainfall.
where the rainfall be
But I mean, it is not as much as we used to get.
Where you gonna come?
But you have to
When?
prepare.
when
It come
you
in.
have it there just in case it fall.
You have to have
We
it.
ain't got it for 2 and 3 years and not
You
gonna be
have
in
to
the
have
ta-
it. So
not gonna be-
when it fall and you,
So you're gonna tell people
When
don't
it fall
fill
and
up
you
the
don't
tank
have it.
them from the potable water?
well,
You don't have to police that.
if
People gonna
you
full
need
up
to-
the tanks and the same water that you're trying to conserve
Yeah,
will
no,
be placed inside
no,
of the
no,
tanks.
no.
them.
You don't need. Why you need to fill up your tanks from the potable
May
water?
you could understand that. But may you could understand we ain't filling up no tank from the potable
no,
water.
no,
Because
it
people
doesn't
would
make
fill it
sense.
just in case.
No,
But
no, no.
you could set systems in place that the tanks, and you know this, Nital, the tanks could only be filled from
The rainfall.
the rainfall, and so you don't have any way of filling it from that
You would
source.
have to show me
You can, I know you can.
construction.
I know you
And
can.
then you could put a valve that
You
cuts
can-
off after a certain
Exactly.
time.
So you could put a shut-off valve. You could put a system in place that you can connect from here, from this source to that. And you could put systems in place to monitor if the water levels is being tampered with to determine if somebody would have done that. I know it can be done.
Yeah.
I'm into safety, so I know that could be done.
I sent
It would cost more, but it can be done.
I sent the PM, I think this black guy in America, he's extracting water from the atmosphere.
I saw
The
that.
humidity, extracting water, and the man make a big business out of it. Plenty of water Canada, but I don't believe we have the land mass to implement something like that, so we could get a lot of water being extracted from the humidity in the air. Okay, we're going down an hour last,
Yep,
but
yep.
I want you to share some hope.
Yep.
Let them know the amount of work that was put into this, and how hopeful they are to get it in a reasonably good time.
Yeah.
Like you said, maybe for
Yeah.
independence.
Yeah. In fact, like I told you, when we started, we were thinking we could do it in 6 weeks, by the end of April.
Wow.
And because of the nature of the work and the amount of work involved, we extended it to the end of July. In fact, we had a meeting on the 31st of July to really bring things together. And since that, we have had these meetings, which include what we are doing now, the education and public relations, because we want people to understand what it's all about. And so I want to thank you. I mean, like I say, you are the person who initiated this after you heard what was happening and you wanted to share and to be a part of it, to take it. So I want to thank you. That is commendable. And so we believe anytime now. In fact, we are due to report to the minister. I just had a message from the permanent secretary today. In fact, when I was telling her, clearing with her to get this meeting, to get this this event here tonight on this radio station with you. And she told me that there's, the minister will want to see us to things. And after that, it's to go to cabinet. So I believe it's any time now.
So it's Freedom, Win FM, ZIZ, Sugar City.
Yeah.
But yet we're talking about national minimum wage. I have not heard anything about one radio.
Well, yeah, we are we have not been over there, but the minimum wage committee has people from Nevis, the private
So what
sector
about
and the
the
Ministry of
education
Labour.
out there, just like what we're doing here?
Well, we're
No
hoping
one
that.
go to Nevis?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, maybe.
No, I'm just saying that it's
That's an
national
omission,
and
maybe,
maybe
yeah.
maybe a recording or something
Yeah,
can
yeah,
be sent
yeah.
over
Yeah.
and they take some time and play it. It will only be fair, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jenny, any parting shots?
Parting shots, not shots. Just want to say thank you very much to Sugar City Rock, and yourself, Mr. Nital, for inviting us here, members from the Minimum Wage Advisory Committee, to continue the sensitization process. I'm hopeful that persons are listening, and I know. I've been to the station long enough to know that when persons aren't calling, it means that they are listening. And Mr. Nital going to be bombarded at the right time with the questions, and that will determine whether or not he would want us back to continue the dialogue. And I want to say to the general public that an increase is coming. It is important, though, that we as individuals do what is necessary to impact us positively, not just tomorrow, but for the future, where the increase is concerned. So I am personally asking that persons use this increase wisely, invest it, put it in places where they can see benefits, derive and gain from it, not just for themselves, but for future generations to come.
So they might have to recalibrate the preference scale.
I'm just trying to say that without saying it. So
Yes,
thank you very much.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you very much for availing yourself, and I think that it was informative and, of course, transformative as well, because people now have a different mindset, a better understanding. They might have to unlearn certain things that they had between the grammar between the two ears, and know that they have gotten the information from the horse's mouth. They can go out and further preach the gospel about the minimum wage. Thanks much. And I'd like to thank you on behalf of the entire Federation for the work that you all would have put in as committee members. And of course, the chairperson. Some people take things for granted, but we got to really appreciate, because without this, this
There's
couldn't
no
happen.
increase, yes, correct.
Yeah.
It would-
And like I said, all the members of the committee, they have been really, conscientious and, committed to what they were doing. I'm really impressed with the level of participation and involvement that we've had from every single member of the committee.
And the PM is not here, but I think he must be commended highly as well, especially when you met challenges with respect to bringing in the gentleman. And he indicated, well, if he doesn't come from that vote or that vote, I'll take it directly from my ministry and we'll get these things done.
Yep.
And to see that he further went on to have another subcommittee to follow up and what was shared to him.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Mr. PM, and continue the good works. Thanks much, and thanks for listening.
The opinions and statements made by the host and participants in this program are not those of the owners, advertisers, and management company of Sugar City FM 90.3, nor are such statements necessarily supported or endorsed by the owners, managers, or advertisers of this station. While we encourage all to share their opinions, we do not support any comments that may slander, discriminate,